Good morning. Welcome to the opening session of the local summit. Summer has ended, but the summer weather hasn't. We're all very happy about that. This morning we're going to have an exciting program to hear about what is on the planning table for what we used to call the industrial zone. It's now called the Maker Zone. I was just looking at this and realizing it's even bigger than I had thought. Those of us who don't live in Mamaroneck, I think, are not fully aware of how big that area really is. Before I do that, though, since it's the opening session, I would like to go around, even before our tidbits, and have everybody quickly say who they are and what they represent in terms of either the place they live in the community, the tri-municipal area, or what organizations they're a part of. So can we start over here? I'm Elaine Chapnick, president of the local summit.
Gotta speak up.
Very loud. Okay, Lynette?
Okay, Lynette C. I am on the Summit Board, and I'm also on the board of Continuing Ed, the Student Aid Fund in the Larchmont Library.
John Gitlitz, I'm on the Summit Board as well, and I'm on the Human Rights Committee, and I'm a member of the Board of the Community Resource Center.
Ira Block, I'm a member of the Town of Mamaroneck Planning Board.
Doris Block, I'm a member of the Summit Board, the Larchmont Food Pantry Board Committee, and the Town of Mamaroneck Traffic Committee.
Janet Bear, Summit Board.
My name is Nora Lucas. I'm on the Village of Mamaroneck resident. I'm on the Flood Litigation Committee, and I'm running for Village Trustee.
And I'm Sabrina Fiddleman, and I'm on the Summit Board, and I'm running to be trustee in the Town Board.
Council.
Board member. Councilwoman.
Janice DeMacy, I'm a member of the Summit Board of the Women's Club of Larchmont, Continuing Ed.
She'd be here all day.
Jeff Negan, Summit Tidbit Manager. And president of LMC-TV, and this Thursday is a roundtable on DACA.
Oh, wow. A roundtable on DACA.
Jed Negan, I'm a member of the Blacksville Housing Alliance.
Anne-Marie Tironi. I'm a former director of the Keeps After School Program, currently serving on its board.
Great.
Robert Stark, I'm a member of the Flood Mitigation Committee.
Andrew Andrews, former mayor of the Village of Larchmont. Fran Snedeker, member of the Planning Current Public Action Club.
Good morning, Debbie Minetta, Director of Communications for Mamaroneck Schools.
Hi, I'm Robin Seltzer. I'm with Investment Design Properties, commercial real estate brokerage in March and New Rochelle, but a fairly new resident of Washington.
Good morning, I'm Maria Mantis, Summit Board, and also Keeps Board.
Good morning, I'm Rose Silvestro, Summit Board, and various other community organizations.
Okay. Elizabeth?
I'm Elizabeth Sanger, Mamaroneck Village resident for 45 years, and a member of the Human Rights Committee.
Bob Sanger, Mamaroneck Village President.
Bob Fletcher, member of the Coastal Zone Management Committee for the Town of Mamaroneck.
Bill Oldham, the Larchmont Lions Club.
I'm Gina Wallet, and I'm a longtime Larchmont resident and a member of the local Indigenous Chapter. I'm Angela Terrero, Washingtonville Housing Alliance Board, Summit Board, Mamaroneck resident.
Neely?
Emilia Sherry, Cheryl, Committee on the Arts for the Village of Larchmont, and Human Rights Management.
Kay Francis Richards, the Summit Board, and several other community activities. And I want to take this opportunity to thank the Summit for the lovely bouquet of flowers you sent me while I was in rehabilitation. It really cheered up everything.
Kay had
Thank you so much.
Kay had a hip operation, a hip replacement recently. We welcome you back, Kay Francis.
Thank you.
I'm Mary Lee Berry's chief role banker. $8. Anybody who's not, I see some hands.
Okay.
Get to you. Also, there's a sign-up sheet going around. I'm chief, what does that mean? Whatever. Summit Board member, Human Rights Committee, Interfaith and Women's Club.
Anna Bukowski, St. Augustine Church and Summit Board.
Ann Goody Chodosh,
born and raised in Larchmont. I'm Tammy Burks. I'm on the Summit Board. I'm on the Board of Neighbors for Refugees. I live in Larchmont, and I'm the Associate Rector at St. Thomas and Mamaroneck.
Ron Meister, Mamaroneck Town Justice.
George Megardicci, and on leave as the president of the Oriental Food Association, Historical Board Society member for the Village of Mamaroneck, and candidate for mayor for the Village of Mamaroneck.
David Jackson, Larchmont Village President.
Eddie Jackson, Summit Board member of LMC-TV, Flood Committee member, and I'm really thrilled that there are so many of us from the Flood Committee here today, and co-president of the League of Women Voters in the American President.
Rick DeAngelis, member of the Maker's Zone Committee, as well as also a member of Housing Action Council and the AIA Westchester Hudson Valley.
Sean Murphy, Murphy Brothers Contracting, and of Mamaroneck Self-Storage.
I'm Janet O'Connell, Summit Board, and at Palumbo Sound.
Marlene?
I'm Marlene Colbert, a former trustee in the Village of Larchmont, League of Women Voters, various other things. And if you haven't gotten your home composter yet, I recommend all of you to go down and get your home composter. It's great.
Jane Elkindini, WFS Survivors.
Good morning, Malcolm Truman, Summit Board, Larchmont Village Trustee and President of the Larchmont-Mamaroneck Hunger Task Force.
Iris Freed, Hope Community Services, that's a tribute to New Rochelle. And I also want to make an announcement. Terry Schwartzman, who used to come here, unfortunately died.
Oh.
And I have a notice here about her memorial, and what she has said particularly, instead of flowers, please give it to her flowers.
Thank you.
Okay.
When is the memorial?
The memorial is October 10th, and here, I'll pass this around.
Where is it?
Okay.
Iris, where? Where is it?
Where and when? It's going to be October 10th at 3 o'clock at a temple on Rochester Avenue. So I'll pass it around.
Okay, thank you.
Can I also tell you a quick story which I'm very proud of? Home Community Services every year give out 500 backpacks. I don't know if you've seen it, it was on television. And 250 were stolen.
Oh, no.
And what I think is so wonderful is the way the community responded. We got so many backpacks and people helping to fill them, and we gave out 1,500.
Oh, terrific.
Oh, good morning, Keith Giza, community member.
Whatever. Carrie Sleeper, Emmy Lou Sleeper's youngest and most favorite son, and yes, I'm a composer.
I'm Kelly Taylor, I'm a Mamaroneck resident. I own a brewery in Brooklyn. I'm exploring moving it out here.
I'm Susan Riley. I'm the library director in Mamaroneck. I'm Pamela Dubitsky. I'm the chair of the Larchmont Public Library Board, and I'm on the board of Manor Park also.
George Latimer, Michigan Senator, candidate for Westchester
Take
County.
your time.
Lauren Friedley, head of adult reference for Mamaroneck Public Library.
I'm Theodora Saul. I'm on the Summit Board. There's a place up here. Yes.
And Laura Eckley, the director of the Larchmont.
There's one over here. Thank you, everybody. Is Laura Rosenthal here? She wanted to make an announcement about the Friends of Larchmont Parks. Anybody know what she wanted I think she wanted to talk about Constitution Park. They're having a big thing to try to tell everybody.
They're raising money to redo Constitution Park. There is a plan that's been in effect, around for a long time, done by a local urban planner and park planner. And Laura Rosenthal is the head of a group that's working very hard to reconstitute Constitution Park and make it the center of Larchmont.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you, everybody. And now, our tidbits. John? Jeff Megan. Jeff Megan, that's right. Advertising.
All right, I'm going to make this quick. Welcome back, everybody. I was going to give a quiz this morning, but I thought first day back at school for us, I don't want to do that. But I will say, and I want to do this pretty quickly because Andy and John here have a great program. I want to see how many remember my program. You know, I said that Larchmont and a little bit of Mamaroneck, but primarily Larchmont, is well known in the world for the automotive industry. That seems a little weird, you know, but it is. Anybody remember my program on Albert Bostwick? What did he do? He ran a great race, an automobile race, in 1900, starting at the Waldorf Astoria and finishing at the gate of Larchmont Yacht Club. One of the cars ran into it. And the winning time was 1 hour and 17 minutes. They probably had Easy Pass. But my story this morning is about the forgotten man of the automobile industry. A man who resided for many years in the village of Larchmont. At the age of 25 in 1893, he appeared at the Chicago World's Fair with his new invention, age 25. The invention was the pneumatic hammer, or the jackhammer, at age 25 in 1893. So he was quite a guy. At the fair, he saw Gottlieb Daimler's first self-propelled carriage. And so, I have to turn the page, huh? We should be buying a lectern. So he designed and constructed his own automobile. And he became very famous. Does anybody know why Detroit was named the Motor City? You think it was Henry Ford? No. It was this man. In March 6 of 1896, he drove the streets of Detroit. Hence, it was known as the Motor City. There was a young fellow who followed him on a bicycle. That was Henry Ford. He helped Henry Ford develop the quadricycle. He became a mentor to Henry Ford. He started his own motor company in 1910, which lasted until 1923. He successfully made a V8, first V8 engine simply called the 8, and sold that car. That damn lectern again. So he had invented 64 different machines. He helped design the Bugatti airplane engine during World War I. But back to Larchmont. In 1924, he built Dolphin Corps, a sizable estate in Larchmont. He was known as an engineer, artist, musician, poet, architect, inventor, and mystic. He applied his enormous wealth to the design and decor to transform his new home from a carriage house to mostly what it is today. You haven't guessed yet. Filled with architectural oddities from old churches, ships, and mansions, front door from St. Gabriel's, portholes, figured ceiling beams, distressed wood floors from Hudson Steamboat, Mary Powell, the Vanderbilt Museum, the mansion, and a 27 Bell Carillon. Obviously, you know what the house is. Okay? It's not Please Don't Eat the Daisies. This is the guy that transformed the carriage house and the stables into what it is today. The Kerrs didn't do it. Robert Brady King did it, and still is the leading guy in the automobile industry, and nobody knows who he is. And I happen to know this personally because you all know Nidra Gillette. Nidra's husband, Pete, a doctor, grew up on 60 Beach Avenue. And that's the house that used to have the long lawn until they built that house in front of it. Okay? And his father was a famous architect and designed Playland, the county center, etc. Leon Gillette. And Leon Gillette was Pete's grandfather, and Leon Gillette was a good friend of Robert King. My grandfather was a guy named H.H. Dyke and was a patent lawyer and helped work for Thomas Edison, and he was a buddy of Robert King's. And so when Pete and I were kids, we used to go over and visit Robert King in Delphincourt. Please don't eat the daisies house. And it was weird. In the courtyard, he had an actual steam train going around. He had a lab upstairs where he invented things. He had little pop-outs. When you walked in the front door, the window to the left, he pressed a button and a puppet would pop out. So there we are. The leading man and the forgotten man of the automobile industry lived in Larchmont. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. And now I'm going to turn the program over to Peggy Jackson.
Hi, everyone. Just wanted to introduce our two speakers to you. Gentleman I served with for many years on the Flood Committee. John Verney, local real estate developer and attorney responsible for the redevelopment of the Mamaroneck train station building. Member of the Mamaroneck Planning Board, co-chair of the Industrial Area Redevelopment Committee. I'm sorry, this is going to go on quite a long time. Ad hoc member of the Flood Mitigation Advisory Board, chair of the Space Committee for LMC-TV Board, board member of the Washingtonville Housing Alliance. After living on the Sound Shore North Shore for 23 years, John finally moved to Mamaroneck in 2013 with his wife and 4 children and feels blessed to live here. As for me, quote, this is from Andrew Spatz, I maintain a local law practice with specialty in the area of land use, zoning, and landlord-tenant, as well as ownership management of the commercial real estate in the Sound Shore. I've been a co-chair of the Industrial Area Redevelopment Committee since August 2014, former chair and current member of the FMAC, the Flood Committee, former member of the Mamaroneck Village Board of Architectural Review, current vice president of the OPA, Oriental Point Association, and former member of the Westchester County Airport Advisory Committee. You're not going to find 2 people who are more involved in caring about our community than these 2. So without any further ado, I turn it over to them. Thank you.
Sure. As I knock over the chairs, orange juice. Good morning. Thank you for that warm introduction, and it's a pleasure to be here. 2 of my favorite topics, the Maker Zone and breakfast. I mean, who could? We all can agree on that. I would be remiss if I failed to not mention and thank members of the Industrial Advisory Committee, one whom's here, Greg DeAngelis. We thank you for being here, and I also want to thank the municipality, the Village of Mamaroneck, the Board of Trustees, Village Planning, and Village Manager for really assisting us on this collective effort. And when we embarked upon this endeavor, we set upon many priorities to seek economic and environmental longevity in the industrial area, raising the bar not just in the Sound Shore, but the county alike. And we wanted to learn from the success and challenges of prior studies, which included the Mamaroneck Comprehensive Plan, which reflected the need to encourage commercial industrial establishments that were compatible with existing village uses and developmental goals. The Mamaroneck Village Industrial Area Study of 1997, the Waverly Avenue Design Study, the Fenimore Road Improvement Study from 2004. So there's a historical context to all this. Additionally, we wanted to arrive at a final comprehensive product that would be used in the future as a tool to guide and inspire economic growth, development, yet celebrate the historical context in the area and remain consistent and in harmony with the character of this fine community. It was paramount for the committee to remain steadfast in the notion of welcoming all suggestions, ideas, and visions, yet keeping in mind the need to preserve the uses currently enjoyed in the industrial area today, which provide wonderful jobs as well as products that are made here in the Sound Shore. It was equally as important to remain accessible to address the concerns that residents both here in the village and neighboring communities had alike. Whether you're a business owner or a resident, it was important to be heard. Taking a step back, during the summer of 2016, the Industrial Advisory Committee Subcommittee arrived at a vision, the concept, the Mamaroneck Maker Zone. And in a few minutes, John will walk you through that. But what is the Maker Zone? Well, it's Maker, by the way, with a K. Manufacturing, artisanal foods and arts, crafts and design businesses, environmental buffers, and recreation. The mission statement for the Maker Zone is, quote, a coordinated effort to preserve existing uses and incentivize the growth of the maker economy in Mamaroneck as an economic engine for jobs, tax revenue, environmentally sensitive redevelopment, neighborhood and eco-friendly buffering, flood mitigation, and new recreational activities, all aimed at revitalization and sustainability of the manufacturing district in Mamaroneck, as well as the Sound Shore. You could add that. This past January, the Industrial Advisory Committee unanimously agreed to forward a list of zoning recommendations to the Board of Trustees for their consideration, and most recently, the Board of Trustees, village managers, village planning department, and the Industrial Advisory Committee interviewed 5 different consultants and firms to provide planning services to the village in connection with the generic Environmental Impact Statement, GEIS, in accordance with State Environmental Quality Review Act, SEQRA. It should be noted that the accumulation of the recommendations and future retention firm to conduct this comes out of nearly 3 years of tremendous research and review by the Industrial Advisory Committee. The original consultant replaced Urban Studio, village staff, and the full participation and guidance from public workshops that were held, presentations, and combined meetings, one of which included a summit with various land board use committees in the village of Mamaroneck. Somewhat historic, because in a sense you're getting feedback and input from the very boards and land use committees that will ultimately be hearing and many of these applications. But to further expand upon the proposed overlay, I turn it over to my co-chair, John Verney. So thank you very much, and we look forward to a productive morning.
Thank you, Andrew. And I've worked, it's about 2-3 years now we've been working on this project. So it's been a good process. As Andrew said, the goals of the Industrial Area Committee was to look at new ways to look at the industrial area and try to bring some new life to it. The mission was to preserve existing uses and add new uses there. When we set out, we wanted to replace things, not displace things. We came in at the outset and said, this is not going to be like an IKEA project. I lived in New Rochelle for 23 years. We're not looking to build a big box store and move people out. Didn't make sense to remove homes to sell people furniture. It seemed to be opposite. So what we're trying to do is brand the area and bring new uses in, be cognizant of a couple of limitations we have there. Obviously flooding down there. We have to be cognizant of the flooding, and we're working, and again, I'm on the Flood Advisory Committee, Flood Mitigation Advisory Committee with Peggy and Andrew. We've been working hard on that project, so we're looking at this project from both pre-Army Corps and post-Army Corps. We've been down to Federal Plaza, Andrew and I went down to Washington, D.C. to testify about the flood project, and that'll have a positive impact on our flood situation, obviously, if it ever gets off the grounds. When it gets off the grounds, we're actually very far along. They've said we're farther along than actually Breezy Point in actually getting it done, so which is good. So there are things we can do design-wise. There are things we can do with green infrastructure to address the flooding, pre-Army Corps project and obviously post-Army Corps project. The area will provide a platform to do some more of this industrial revitalization. Also, one of the goals was to protect our neighborhoods. We found in recent years we've had a couple of projects that have become tinder boxes, the Ralph's on US 1, the Sandbox Theater. This is an area that could use new uses, and so keep them away from our residential areas, keep them away from US 1, and in fact, in a good way, Sandbox, which was a place where kids were practicing to do productions, and then they wanted to do productions, They moved off of US 1 and they've moved down towards the industrial area over by the, over by the boxing place down there on Waverly. So that's relocated there. And also protecting the environment. So in taking all this feedback, we came to the idea of doing some overlay zones, a retail overlay zone, and a live-work overlay zone. So we have maps on the table, and the concept is that the green area around, and I'll go to this map, so 95, Fenimore Road, and obviously the train tracks. The Sheldrake comes around, and then as we know, goes over towards Columbus Park. So we want to keep an environmental buffer around the area for both green space, hopefully get some type of a green walkway to go along 95 by the Sheldrake, which will be helped by the Army Corps project, and also provide a buffer to the Washingtonville area. Obviously, we want to create a noise impact to the Washingtonville area, and also to the Rockland area to the south, heading towards Larchmont. In the middle area, this is an area where we propose an overlay zone. Right now, it's manufacturing, but you can't do retail there. So we're proposing making a retail overlay zone so we can bring new uses down there. The maker zone, and that was an acronym we came up with to try to brand the area. So as Andrew mentioned, manufacturing, we want to continue the manufacturing. We want to augment the artisanal foods we have down there. We have some cheese shops. We have a fish store that's going through some issues, but other type of artisanal uses, crafts, people who make things, and then the environmental buffer, and maybe recreation, maybe some type of a recreational use like a Chelsea Piers type of use. So that'll happen in the area that's in the purple. And then there are some homes in this area. And
17 residential properties to be exact.
So 17 residential areas. So there's an area that we'd like to encourage some live use, people who are kind of like that Brooklyn vibe, people living in the area, making things, living above the shop that they're making things. So to implement that, as Andy referenced, we've started the process of both talking about zoning changes and also starting the GEIS, which is the process by which we're going to study the traffic that's down there now, the parking that's down there now, addressing those issues. And also to try to continue some momentum, we've held some successful food truck festivals down there to try to get that, again, get that energy and Brooklyn vibe going. And so, yes. A little louder? Okay.
You should hear when he's growing.
And beyond just the studies of the traffic and so forth, we also want to have bring some momentum. So we're trying to do something that's market driven. So going out to the community, seeing what the community wants, seeing what the business community wants, what will work there, what type of uses will work there, and so something that's market driven. You know, one of the things that we found is that, you know, places in Brooklyn, Manhattan are overpriced. We have area here where people might want to bring businesses because on a cost per square footage, it's a lot less expensive to do business here in Mamaroneck than it is downtown. So those are the steps we're taking, and we'll take some questions if anyone has them.
Just want to add, if I could, just two things. One, John made a very good point. One of my favorite quotes is that in the industrial area and parts of it, you can smelt iron, but you can't sell a cupcake. So we want to be able to expand upon that. And also, when we were talking about it along the Sheldrake, and this is something that I know the Flood Mitigation Advisory Committee, the town of Mamaroneck, the village of Mamaroneck, and Larchmont have really been trying to seek a way to connect our communities. Allow someone to be able to walk or bike from Larchmont all the way up to the village of Mamaroneck and back and forth using this green space. So it's really a way not only to bring business, but also to connect the Sound Shore, where we're so fortunate to be able to call home, whether you live here or call home as a business. So just want to add that. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I've been concerned for some time. After all this is done, what's going to happen to the people that are low income? Are they going to be pushed out, or will provisions be made for them to remain in their homes?
Here's the thing, much like John made reference to, we're not looking to usurp or change the existing uses. We're actually, the overlay would be more inclusive. So for example, if a cupcake store wanted to open up on Waverly Avenue, they could, because as of right now, anything off 150 feet off of Fenimore Road, you can't do retail. So we're looking to do that. We're not looking to, if you're living down there now in one of those 17 residential homes, we're not looking, when I say we, being the board and the committee and the community, the village, we're not looking to move you at all. So that's a very good question. Thank you. Yes.
So my question is very related. When you say that there are 17 homes, are they 17 official properties zoned as residential properties?
I think right now because the area is zoned manufacturing, I think they're pre-existing non-conforming, but we're not trying to make it so that they would have to leave. And we're actually trying to augment it by allowing live work there. So in that area where the homes already are, we create a zone where you could do live work. So you could have a shop downstairs and you could have some residential above it. So.
I believe that there are a number of people who live there in homes that are not technically homes, that are converted, or some are converted manufacturing space, or tenement-like buildings. I know families who live there. I don't know if those houses are actually among the 17.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you what I do know, which is they don't make cupcakes,
Mm-hmm.
or small batch chocolates, or artisanal cheeses.
Right.
These are people who do unskilled labor for the most part,
Mhm.
and live paycheck to paycheck, and are wonderfully in the Mamaroneck Avenue School, which is great because they're nurtured and the children are well cared for. But once everything gets fancy in Brooklyn,
Mhm.
then these people can't afford to live there anymore.
Yeah.
So we have any proposals for rent subsidies when they have to move. Repeat the question.
Yeah, the question was that there are folks living there now that are of modest means that are not maybe working in a artisanal food business and something that might be displaced, kind of a question about gentrification. And we're not looking to gentrify the area. We're just looking to add uses so that right now it's a lot of parking lots because of the flooding. Owners have knocked down the buildings and they're just letting them lay fallow as parking lots and park cars there. So we're trying to add something that adds new life and vigor down there and add uses, not displace people. Exactly opposite of what happened with the IKEA proposal is to add uses. And I'm actually on the Washingtonville Housing Board. There's a great dinner coming up on October 3rd. I have invitations if anyone's interested. It's at this great old train station that I know about. So everyone's invited. There are invitations up here. So we're hoping to bring new life there and hopefully bring some jobs for people in the Washingtonville area and provide employment opportunities, but not displace people. No, and we've heard that loud and clear. We've heard loud and clear that people don't want any of these new uses to impact the Washingtonville area or the Larchmont, Rockland area, and we don't want to displace people. That's not the purpose. A grocery store is a possibility, yeah.
About a year ago, there were some individuals from the city that were very much interested in opening up like a little French gourmet grocery, walk in, walk out, right in the area. So there is interest, and also much like your question about people that live there. There are generational families down there that have family businesses, and they are concerned, and they share that sentiment alike. Well, what's going to happen to us? And so for several years now, we've been hearing that, not just from individuals that reside down there, but also family businesses that are fourth, fifth generation businesses. So gourmet. No, we do hear you, and with respect to the grocery, for example, I know that on Mamaroneck Avenue, they're seeking a grocery. And that is a unique business, especially when you have these monster stores that are opening up on Westchester Avenue. So, but ideally, what this will do is it'll provide a platform. So whether it's a French bakery, or whether it's a grocery or a fruit stand, it will open the doors to allow that. Right now, 150 feet off Fenimore Road, you can't do it unless it's ancillary to the primary use. So we're all trying to open up that door.
You know, a grocery is something that's definitely needed in the area, and that was one of the things when we were down in Washington. We went down with the mayor and some of the trustees to talk about the flooding, and someone from the Office of Management and Budget came and said to Andrew and I, said, give us a little flavor about what the flooding causes to your neighborhood. And we talked about a grocery store, saying it's tough to get a grocery store in an area that's underserved because of the flooding, and grocery stores don't want to locate down there. So if you can do some things to change maybe some of the elevations, some of the height requirements, and also address the flooding, then we can bring a grocery store to the area, which is desperately needed to serve that community. So that's one of the things that we did to add some, some human flavor to why it's so important that we get this Army Corps project in our area.
The good news is, with regards to flooding and management, floodwater management, in conjunction, we're going to go there, but boom. What I'm very pleased to share, in conjunction to the Flood Mitigation Advisory Committee, the town of Mamaroneck, the village of Mamaroneck, efforts have been made in anticipation if there's a significant rainfall coming, maintaining this infrastructure, the storm drains, lowering the dam in Larchmont, things that we've learned from 2007. So going forward, we're able to answer that question. So when people say we have someone who's interested in opening up a grocery store, but they're scared because of flooding, even separate and apart from the Army Corps project, we're doing things today and tomorrow that the municipalities, the town of Mamaroneck, the village of Mamaroneck collectively can do to assist that situation. I think there was a question right in the corner.
There's no saying what goes around comes around. And all the greenery that you do see, this particular parcel of land in the village of Mamaroneck was once known as the strawberry patch. And all that green that you saw was where the wild strawberries used to grow. This whole area, with the exception of what you have striped south of Fenimore Road, was 100% residential, with the exception of TMC, which was on the corner of between Fayette and the Thruway before they built the Thruway, Technical Materials Corporation, and the other side of Waverly Avenue. But in between that, Waverly Avenue, one side, Center Street, Ogden, and Fayette was 100% residential. Then south of Ogden, there was Happiness Laundry and a couple others. But even going to Rockland Avenue, it was 100% residential. This area is strictly industrial. There's nothing really, and if the folks who the young lady was referring to, there are spots of houses that still exist. I don't know, but what happened as to why this area was completely gentrified from residential to industrial is because the majority of the people, the residents who lived there, which was largely Italian and black, were non-owners. And when they sold their properties, it just automatically turned into industrial. My house is Roto-Rooter on the corner of Ogden and Waverly Avenue. I don't know when it was, we went from residential to industrial, but that's what it is now. So in light of what she's saying, you're not going to bring cupcake stores there. It's strictly, in fact, the majority of the stores are auto repair shops. Okay, from up and down Center Street, from the Ice House, which used to be Saxony, all the way down to Rockland Avenue, the majority of the businesses are car repair shops. So, I mean, if there's a truthfulness to it, it's going to be an industrial area. So, to make that presentation in that direction, it's not. It's very little residential, and almost next to none.
And Keith, it's not intended to do residential. A lot of towns are doing residential where they're taking old industrial areas and taking every old factory and turning it into residential. We have an industrial area. We're just trying to clean it up, trying to be a little bit environmentally conscious. Right now, everything's paved over, so any proposal that comes before the planning board now requires that there be at least 15-20% impervious surface. Right now, it's 100%, pervious, impervious. It's got to be at least 15-20% impervious to address some of the environmental concerns. And also, there's things you can do to bring in some green infrastructure, bring in some stormwater, bring in some green gardens to catch the stormwater and try to clean up the area. So yeah, it is too many automotive uses, and we're not saying we're going to turn it into residential. We're just going to try to clean up the uses, and then maybe try to make it less of a place that shuts down between 6 and 7 in the morning, 7 in the morning to 7 at night, and maybe bring a little more life to it, to that area is the intention.
It's not a two-fold question. It's another comment to make, that even though you can't see it because of the outline of the map, the Sheldrake River takes 2 right turns in that particular area. And unless we can get something from Washington, D.C. to bring up flood walls or whatever, it'll always flood. And this is it's not a threat, because I live there, and we also know. Mamaroneck, you talked about Harvey, Irwin, or whatever, Irma. If Mamaroneck gets 11 inches of rainwater within a 24-hour period, that whole area will flood.
Yeah, and that's what we're working on with the Army Corps, and trying to bring in exactly those type of flood walls or trapezoidal walls, so it's a little more aesthetically pleasing. I mean, I know I'm at the train stations. That was great. That's ground zero. So.
We all know. I mean, because everybody that lives in there, 2 inches near water, we fret all of a sudden. There's a threat of long rain.
Yeah, Janet had a question.
Yeah, I was talking about the traffic pattern, because we all come down and we have to go to one room. But if you do something with the traffic that allows it to go over a little easier than going down one street, I think you'll get more activity in there.
And that was once we start to do the visioning of what we'd like to see down there, or where it might go. Oh, the question was what to do about the traffic pattern down there, and I think Janet was talking about the flow that comes up on Waverly and Fenimore, and so that was like the first part, was if we're going to proceed further, let's get a baseline on what the traffic issue is. So the village board has voted the money to start looking at that, and to get the baselines, and to have first start doing both the parking and the traffic issues.
Exactly, that's number one.
Yeah.
But, I was thinking, I mean, there were certain needs in the area, and one, like, I have a dog, and I'm looking for a place to send my dog like a spa, and they were saying, it's the perfect area to bring the dog to, and have these buildings. I want to change it.
Well, one of the things they make down there are dog biscuits, so you can a place to bring your dog and buy the dog biscuits. So that's another type of use that's there. Christy.
That sounds a little bit like gentrification, but that's already.
Dogification, yes.
Keith is talking about historically things change and they don't really have foresight. The change has already happened here. We have parking lots, and I don't think we really wanted to see that happen again and again, losing space that has either been used for jobs or something else, and I think it's a good plan.
Yeah.
And I also think that local employment is something these could bring businesses that we have people who want to stay local. Maybe they don't want to use a car, they want to walk, and anything to stem the parking lot.
One of the things that the state's been pushing, and Governor Cuomo's been pushing, is money for microbreweries, and there's like a competition out there for who's going to build microbreweries. Now we have one of the biggest beer stores in the country with Halftime, and they want to do a microbrewery which abuts this area. There's also other folks. There was a gentleman here who was interested in doing a microbrewery down there. So Portchester's looking to do them. Nourishell's looking to do them. We have an area where it's appropriate to do it. It's right off of 95. So we're making it in the zoning, so that's the type of use that would be appropriate there, that you could have a microbrewery and have a retail store connected to it. So that would be appropriate use. At the same time, in dealing with the parking, there were certain lots that we're aware of that the owner would be willing to make that into a parking lot for the area, because you don't want to bring a microbrewery to the area, which would bring both jobs and tax revenue to the area, but overload the place with with cars. So we're in conjunction with a microbrewery being built. There's lots that are being identified to bring parking as well, so that there'd be places for people to park when they come down to the area. Yes, Fran. That's a great question, Fran. So right now you're allowed to build 45 feet. The thing is that, and that would remain. It wouldn't be higher than 45 feet. But it's warehouse 45 feet. So those are 3 stories, 15 stories, 15 feet each. So we would still allow 45 feet. Wouldn't be allowed to go higher than that, but you'd be allowed to do 5 stories within that 45 feet, as it would be in other parts of the village. So the height change would not be. There would not be a height change. It would just be a rejiggering of the stories. And also, we're not trying to go above the 45 feet, but also to allow, as with the project that Greg worked on over in the Washingtonville area, the old 3 Jalapenos, is start above the base flood elevation. Let the calculation go. So you get out of the water before you start building. So that's one of the zoning changes that we're looking to make.
I think it's interesting to note that whether, again, it's with the Army Corps or the efforts embarked upon by the village and town of Mamaroneck, we're trying to make a difference between catastrophic flooding and a nuisance type of event. And that makes a difference between generational businesses going out of business because they can't get insurance or getting devastated by damage caused by the flooding. So, there's a lot that can be done to retain existing businesses and also to incentivize new investment in the area.
Hi, I'm Meg from the STEM Alliance of Larchmont-Mamaroneck Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math Education. And what I noticed the most is we're talking about an industrial area in a school district that has actually removed their entire industrial arts program at the high school, for example. So I see both opportunity in that and also a really important moment to pause and say, could the E be environmental and education? Because I think a lot of the families that we feel deeply concerned about, young children who are coming out without skills that are actually applicable for the jobs that are going to be there. We're talking about possibly creating places for those jobs, but we're not training the people in our area for those potential jobs. And so what I really want to know is where is education going to be layered into this, and where are the opportunities to leverage apprenticeships and things like that for people who are maybe not best destined for a college preparatory track?
That's a great question. I'm going to say probably in the 3 years we've been doing this, that's one of the first times we've actually had that question posed. And it's
then we're
great.
your partners.
That's what I'm about to say. I would love for you to join us at our future meetings that we have. And I will certainly convey to you, I believe it's going to be October. I'll check that before we end the meeting. But your input would be that's a very good point. And I want to say one thing, that the recent food truck fairs that we had one last fall and last spring. The number of young families that were down there exploring, looking, and they were down over on the Sheldrake area where the community garden is, right on the Sheldrake at 95. It was wonderful to see people walking on a Saturday or Sunday. The industrial area, you could roll a bowling ball down Waverly and Fenimore. It was wonderful to see. It's wonderful to see people down there, and I think that that's something that we should absolutely incorporate into the future. Bring in the youth, bring in that type of approach, and make it a teachable experience.
Well, we partner with a national initiative called the Maker Core, the Maker Education Movement. So this is also an element of a movement that's going on nationally. And we're actually holding a fundraiser at Director Shipyard on October 3rd that's going to be all experiences in making. But we believe deeply that we need to put tools back in the hands of kids.
Yeah, that's great. That's exactly one of the things we spoke about, doing that area. So that's great. Also, it's a type of use that's complementary to what's down there already, because some of those activities can take place at night. So rather than the place being, shut after 6 or 7 o'clock at night, adult education. We talked about having colleges and other type of uses down there, and that's the type of use that could complement what's already down there, and especially industrial education. So we applaud that and look forward to working with you on that. Elizabeth?
Must be working on the ancillary. Like, I think about ancillary buildings and business. I think about the CVS, ex-CVS, that once was a grocery store. It was also a bookstore after that. There's a lot of things that, there's a French American school. There's a lot of things in the other parts of the village that are right next to that area that you're focused on, but very much affected. How are you working? How are you cooperating with all these other areas?
Well, one of those is the halftime that's there. That's just out of the industrial area, but we're talking about having that overlay extend there so that they can do a microbrewery in addition to their retail store, and it's a large enough space. We don't want to do something that large on the main drag in Mamaroneck Avenue, but it would be appropriate over by the industrial area. So that's one of those type of uses. The theater I mentioned, the Sandbox Theater, one of the uses we're encouraging, in addition to educational, is also theater uses. Now, a theater might be a good use to activate during the nighttime that area, but something you don't want in the Post Road, abutting the Florence Park neighborhood, but something that would be appropriate in the industrial area. So right now it's and they're active now. I saw them the other night. So you have the kickboxing place down there. And above it, you have all these kids coming at night that are doing a theater study. Now, they're not doing the performances down there yet. They've made an agreement with actually the White Plains Performing Arts Theater to do their performances in White Plains, but why not have them perform in Mamaroneck down in the industrial area if we could develop that type of use? Yes?
I'm going to follow up with a question. Maybe I work at the CRC, Community Resource Center. And with some frequency, we have people who just moved in or because the house is disastrously overcrowded. They come to us and they say, where can we find a place to live in Mamaroneck? And they have incomes that if you doubled their incomes, maybe they could afford a affordable house. I just wish at some point somebody would repose the development question and say, how are we going to make housing available to people who are very valuable in the community? They do all kinds of services we rely on, so they don't have to look and go to New Rochelle to live, where the housing is also disappearing. It just means focusing on a different question. I don't know why we can't do it.
Yeah. Actually, in a different hat, and I serve on the board with Keith on the Washingtonville Housing Board. So I know what you're talking about, and fortunately, because of the refinancing of the senior center across from the train station, there's some money available to do some additional housing in the area. So we're actually looking for different places to do exactly the type of housing you're describing, and actually do some type of supportive housing in conjunction with it. And as you mentioned, it's tough to find land that's valuable. You know, if the land costs go up, it makes it tough. So I'm working with Rich Nightingale, and that's one of the things we're focusing is trying to do a supportive and affordable housing, new affordable housing in the area. So, and again, if anyone wants to come to the Washingtonville dinner, it's on October 3rd at the train station. Another plug. Looks like Moore had a question? No? Oh, okay. Robert.
We're all optimistic that the Army Club project will be approved and completed. Worst case scenario, if it's not, how will that affect your plans?
That's a great question, and the question is, if the Army Corps project doesn't come to volition due to other natural disasters that are occurring on a yearly basis, much like John indicated, we are extremely far along in the process. When John and I and several members of the village were in Washington back in March, it was remarkable to see the process come together. But to get to the core of your question is, much like I said several minutes ago, it's the cooperation between the village of Mamaroneck, the town of Mamaroneck, the individual developers of these parcels, going before the land use boards and commissions when they're doing a development to make sure that they're compliant with Chapter 186 of flood mitigation, making sure that they're not going above the baseline, adding to the problem. It's the cooperation of making sure the dam is lower, the infrastructure that's maintained, which is it's progressed, it's aged. Unlike fine wine that gets better with age, the infrastructure not so much. And it's imperative that, much like you said, if that doesn't come to volition, what can we do to maintain? And it's something that the Flood Mitigation Advisory Committee has always said, we can't count on outside. We've got to take care of ourselves, being the community, the town of Mamaroneck, the village of Mamaroneck, Larchmont. We're in this together because we are at the bottom of the shed, exactly. So all the water that's coming from the north comes to us. So we have to do what we can, which again has improved significantly since 2007, but there's a lot of room of improvement. Greg.
This, just to reiterate a few things, this is very much about knitting into the existing fabric and a lot of service businesses that are there, some new opportunities. It's not going to solve all the challenges of the village, but there's a big opportunity here, I think. And, we expect it's also going to create many jobs. If these new businesses are able to build on what are now used as parking lots or inventory lots for car dealerships, that's probably not the best use of land. It's not the best opportunity for unskilled labor, some of our children and other people in the community to have some jobs. It's also an opportunity to help the tax base for the village. It's a big opportunity there as well. So I think it's very exciting. There's a couple other things just to repeat what Andrew had mentioned. There's a major internet hub in that area, so there may be some maker type businesses or other businesses where nanoseconds means something, that has a value. There's also a train hub, so there's some unique characteristics and opportunities here. So I think the vision, and there's been so many discussions and there's a lot to do, but it's just I think it's an exciting opportunity of an area that's generally isolated from or buffered from the rest of the community. So the impacts will be minimal. Part of the knitting together is to allow some businesses that have more nighttime activities to be in sync or I guess out of sync with some of the service businesses. Certainly our family has had the need for some of the auto repair body shops in the neighborhood, and that's a very thriving business there. So again, it's about knitting into the existing and taking advantage of a huge opportunity we have here.
Greg, thank you. I pose a question to you in a sense of, I have 2 boys, and I can't tell how many times families have come up to and says, wow, we wish we could do sports during the winter here in the Sound Shore. Why should we have to go to Chelsea Piers and Stamford? Why should we go to Hartsdale? Why should we go everywhere else other than home to have an indoor soccer or lacrosse facility? You have several organizations, baseball, soccer, lacrosse, and one of the concepts that has a tremendous amount of traction is a facility much like that. The demand, whether it's the town of Mamaroneck, Larchmont, Mamaroneck, Village, Harrison and parts, there's a tremendous demand for that, and it's something that we should be able to have for the Sound Shore. We shouldn't have to go to Connecticut or 45 minutes away. Especially much like Greg said, that we're situated, this particular area, it's 70 acres, is between 95, the railroad, and the Sheldrake. So there is a natural buffer, and also it's sort of a bowl. So structures that you say, my goodness, it's 40, 45 feet, actually still sits lower than the eyesight where the residentials are on the east and west side of the industrial area.
Also, with a sports facility, that would be another one of those type of, in land use, a complementary use. So you have a place where during the day there's a lot of industrial activity taking place, a sports facility, kids after school, kids at night, going to the area to an area that would otherwise be quiet at night. Something similar to what we did with the train station. Train station obviously busy with commuters in the morning, at night, parking lot's empty. Now it's a restaurant and a parking lot that's generally empty. So those are the type of uses that extend the use of your area. It also protects the area by adding eyes at night. I mean, before I was here, I understand the train station was a little scary to go at night because there was nothing around there. Now there's eyes around there at night because there's a restaurant use. Doing those type of things in this industrial area will make it safer, make it more vibrant, and also help generate taxes without creating too much traffic all at the same time. A complementary use with an industrial school or a sports facility would bring new life to the area. Other questions? All right, just to sum up, Catherine?
I just want to make a comment. Just yesterday, I participated in the neighboring community Rise Downtown master plan focus group. And I just want to commend you. You are light years ahead of your neighbors, and really I think so many other communities in Westchester have to start taking a serious look at repurposing. So really compliments to you for having come this far, and great job.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And again, I would be remiss if we didn't thank the collective effort from the citizens, the residents of this fine community of the Sound Shore, not just the village of Mamaroneck, but the town of Mamaroneck, Larchmont, our municipal officials, our elected officials. This truly, it would be a beautiful project experiment to show how there's no political affiliation in this. This is about the stakeholders. Who's a stakeholder? Everyone is a stakeholder. Whether you're a business owner, a property owner, a resident, everybody has something to gain from this experience. So we appreciate that. Thank you.
So to kind of sum up with the Maker Zone area is we're trying to replace uses and add uses, but not displace any uses. We want to build on what's already there. We want to be inclusive. We want to address the realities of flooding in the Sound there, both pre-Army Corps project and post-Army Corps project. Protect our neighborhoods, bring uses there that have been impinging on our already great neighborhoods. Florence Park has been under siege lately with uses on its borders. We want to bring uses down there that are appropriate. And also do things now to protect our environment, create an environmental buffer, and also address infrastructure down there, green infrastructure, stormwater, and try to bring more pervious surface rather than impervious surface. Get away from the paved over parking lots and do something to start going the right direction towards our environment. So I hope you guys will become involved in the process. We're in the middle of it. It's going to continue on. We're always looking for more input, and thank you for your attention this morning.
I want to thank our speakers. I want to thank Peggy and the committee for pulling it together. Next month is the, 17th? What is the date for the next month? 17th of October, we're going to have a program on the water that comes into your home. All the questions you want to know about, or the answers to the questions you want to know about the water that comes into your home. Thank you for coming this morning. See you next month. Bye-bye.